please welcome to stage Nigel Smith from IndieWire, Gregg Araki, and Shailene Woodley.
What's that? Left over. Yeah, right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We have a really, really big crowd here. It's the biggest one I've seen yet. Well, I've only done one of these before, but let's single out. We have a family that drove in from Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, to see you, Gregg.
Grace,
Big Gregg Araki fans, right?
That's awesome.
Awesome.
You guys flew here from Michigan? That's amazing.
I came here for you.
Homie, that's not what he just said.
I was joking.
Huh?
They're here for you.
Oh, they're here for you.
That was a joke.
No, one's here for me and one's here for you.
Anyways.
Hi, guys.
Good to see you. That's a long drive, right? Oh my God, 12 hours. I don't think I've ever driven for 12 hours anywhere.
No way. Really?
I've flown.
Well, welcome.
Thank you very much for coming.
So I've seen the film twice now. Absolutely love it. Now, watching it, I found out after that it was actually based on a book, and I was kind of surprised. It's based on a book by Laura, I can't pronounce the last name. Kaziski.
I've heard Kaziski, but I think on her website it says Kaziski. And I actually met her for the first time at Sundance at the premiere, and I think I said Kashishki, and she said yes. So, so I've been saying Kaziski now.
Okay. Well, the reason I bring this up is because the film plays so much like a Gregg Araki joint. It just has your unique tone that it plays like something wholly of your own creation. What exactly brought you to this book, and what inspired you to adapt it into this wonderful movie?
When I read the book, I just fell in love with it. I mean, I thought it was so beautifully written, and the story of it, which you can sort of tell from the trailer, it was just very haunting to me, and it really stayed with me, and I just found it so moving. And the imagery in the book just sort of begged to be made into a movie, and that's kind of my movies. I approach them from a very sort of gut level, and it just sort of in my heart, I just said that this is going to be my next movie.
How much changed in adapting the book? I heard that you changed the location of where it takes place, if I'm not mistaken.
I changed, the adaptation is actually very faithful to the book. I did change a couple of things. One was the location. The book takes place in Ohio, and I've never been to Ohio. I grew up in suburban California, so I wanted to make it more something I knew, although I think suburbia is kind of similar wherever you live. So there was that aspect of it, the location, and there was also the book ends in a little bit of a different way, and I felt like the movie, just to work as a movie, needed a little bit more of a third act. And so I did make a small change to the end that Laura actually saw at Sundance, and she just loves the movie and just loved what I did with it.
So when you were writing it, was Shailene on your mind, or did she kind of come at you later in the process?
Shailene is always in my mind. So I actually had met Shailene before I started this movie. She wasn't necessarily in mind, but she really made an impression on me. We had sort of a general meeting that was set up by Nils, who's over there somewhere, her manager, who is a friend of mine I've known for years and years. And he said, you have to meet this client of mine, Shailene Woodley. She's absolutely one of a kind and so special. And I met her, fell in love with her, and it was really, I think, then about 6 months or a year after that, it was at the Spirit Awards when Shailene won for Descendants that I saw Nils again. He saw, Shailene is, looking to do something, and, she's passing on everything. She's being very particular and wants to follow up Descendants with something super special. And, do you have anything? And I said, well, I'm working on this book adaptation. And Nils says, oh my God, send it. And I hadn't even finished it yet, but I finally finished it, sent it to Shailene, and I guess she liked it, because there she is.
I was actually there when you won, and you came backstage and talked to the press, and it's really, really funny that this meeting happened there, because I remember you got a question directed at you asking, like, what do you have coming up? And you said, nothing,
Actually, I didn't know. I wasn't a part of their conversation. That was like a sneaky, sly move that Nils did.
I remember you were actually on the screen, I think, while we were talking. I think you had just won.
So did you know who Gregg was? Were you wholly familiar with all his work before you met the guy?
Before I met him, yeah, I had seen Mysterious Skin and was completely blown away by it. It was so, all of his films, but that was the first one I saw, and I just remember the impression that it left on me. I couldn't get it out of my mind for days and then weeks after I saw it, and yeah, and then I met Gregg, and so there's something so fascinating, so interesting about the kinds of movies I feel like you make. It's always so weird to do these because I'm like, do I say you or do I say he? The kinds of movies that you make, because you sort of do like White Birds and Mysterious Skins and like Kabooms and Smiley Faces, and they're all very different, and yet somehow all are very Gregg Araki. Like they have your individual stamp on them, and I think that that's such a unique feat for like an artist to have.
So given that you were familiar with his work, or that you became more familiar with his whole body of work once you signed on to the project, what surprised you most about the way he works? You must have had some kind of preconception about what it was going to be like to work with Gregg.
I don't know about preconception, but you were just so calm. You're like, yeah. And I'm like, what do you want me? And you're like, just try it, do what you want. And I'm like, what? Okay. He approaches his movies, or at least this one, with such a strong point of view, and I feel like it's all very much in the script. Like the script was so poetic and so beautiful to read, and he would put different songs at different parts in the screenplay, and I feel like that in itself lent to a sort of assumption of what the tone of that particular scene might feel like. And he takes his time casting and making sure that he gets the actors that he wants to get for each role, and takes his time making sure the cinematographer is the exact cinematographer he wants to work with, so that when you're there, all of the elements are specifically chosen, and then I feel like we all just got to play in a sense. And it was such a gift to work with somebody who you felt trusted you so much that you could sort of try whatever you wanted, and if it was going off in the wrong direction, he'd just come back up and slightly shift you back on track.
One thing I love about the film is how sex positive it is. I mean, Kat is a character who just embraces her sexuality, uses her sexuality, and is not apologetic about it at all. I mean, sexuality is really embraced in this film by a teenager, and it's so refreshing to see that portrayed on screen. What about that aspect of the project, I guess, appealed to you, and were you nervous about tackling something like that in a film?
No, I wasn't. I mean, obviously, when I signed on to do this film, I knew that was part of this character and her world, and I think it's so refreshing to see a coming-of-age film that actually deals with sex and that has sexuality be a large theme in the film, because it's such a large part of so many adolescents' lives, right? It's there, we just don't really talk about it, and we really don't talk about it in cinema too often with young people. And you look at French films or European films, and it's not a big deal because sexuality is not something that's sort of taboo over there. It's more normal. It's more accepted. It's just a part of life, and it's part of all of our lives. And I think it's another reason why I love Gregg's films, is that they're not afraid, I guess, to explore things that we all explore in our real lives. But it's funny because this movie's kind of like it has the perfect house and the perfect mother, and yet the image of life being so perfect with the lawn and yet so completely broken inside, and having an image, projecting an image to others that isn't actually the feeling that you exist within yourself, I feel like is similar to sexuality in America in a lot of ways, where it's something that exists, but you just pretend that it doesn't in sort of everyday life. And so I thought it was really neat. And it was truthful. It wasn't exploitative or anything.
Can I get your thoughts on that, too? Because Kaboom as well. I mean, there's a lot of sex scenes. That film was very sex positive as well. Yeah, just speak about bringing that into your work.
That was one of the things about the book that really struck me. And I think it's one of the things that really drew me to it. I was actually didn't even think of this till today, doing a lot of press today and answering a lot of questions. This is the first film I've ever made that is so from a female point of view. It is written by a female. Everything I've ever done up till now has either been written by myself, a man, or adapted from a book or another script by another man. And so this is the first female sort of coming from a female piece of work I've ever done. And that was one of the things I think that was so refreshing about it and so fascinating about it, was its point of view of that from a woman's point of view and what that's like, and what it's like to be a woman, what it's like to be a young girl coming of age, what it's like to be a mother and a wife who's not happy and is sort of playing this role that she doesn't really want to play, and the relationships between mothers and daughters. And there was so many, thematically, there's so many things going on in this story that I had never, even as a man, even thought about. I think that was something that, as a filmmaker, really, really excited me.
The female point of view is something new, but exploring the lives of teenagers, or the lives of young people, is nothing new to you. You clearly have an affinity for the youth generation, dating back to the Doom generation. Why is that? Why do you continue to explore the lives of people that age group? Why does it continue to fascinate you?
It's interesting because it's like, in a way, I kind of try to actually avoid movies about teenagers exactly for that reason. I'm so identified with these movies I made back in the 90s, sort of this teenage trilogy of the Doom generation and Nowhere, and totally fucked up. And this movie is, to me, in a way, kind of the opposite of those movies, in the sense that those movies are truly about teenagers and the state of being a teenager, and they're these kids kind of, it's like teenage anarchy, they're kind of running amok. They have no parents, no houses, no family. It's not really about what goes on at home, whereas this movie is 90% really about that family, that house, that mother, that father, and how Kat relates to them, and also their marriage and what's going on there. So to me, this movie is much more in the vein of like The Ice Storm or American Beauty, kind of that critique and that sort of exploration of the American dream and what really kind of goes on in suburbia.
About the mother, Eva Green, my God, she is a force in this. I mean, she kind of reminded me, and this is a compliment, the highest compliment I can give you, of Faye Dunaway in Mummy Dearest. I mean, she's unhinged. She's completely unhinged, and she's fantastic. How did you go about casting her in this, and what was it like to have her play your mother? It must have been a total riot, I'm guessing.
I mean, I've been a huge Eva Green fan for years and years, since from The Dreamers on. I mean, I find her so incredible, and I was so thrilled at the opportunity to work with her. The thing is, Eva Green was only 32, I think, when we made this film, and Shay, I think, was 20. And the thing about the movie is, in the movie, she ages from, she's in some scenes, she's in her 30s, and when Kat's very small, and then later, she's in her 40s. And so we sort of had the choice of casting an actress who was older or younger. And I was actually told by my makeup people that it's easier to age an actress than to de-age them. So when we went with Ava, it was really, Ava and I were both very concerned about old age makeup and how fake it always looks, like in Brokeback Mountain, the really bad, it sort of knocks you out of the movie a little bit. And so we worked a lot with the makeup artists and everything, but Ava's creation of older Eve was really, literally she just transformed into this other person. Like the way she walked, the way she moved, the way her posture, her voice, everything, she just became this. It was really sort of startling in a way, because Eva Green, if you've ever seen her in person, is literally the most stunning woman you've ever seen. I mean, she's truly a movie star, and like all the heads turn when she walks in the room. And when she became this sort of sad, tragic, like older version of Eve, it was really just an amazing testament to what an incredible actress she is.
It was amazing to work with Ava, because you meet her and she is so striking, and she's such a strong feminine force. And then she would go through hair and makeup, and we'd be on set filming, and she'd walk in and you'd expect to see the person that you saw 2 hours ago, and yet when she put on the wig, her entire physicality changed, and when her face looked different, and she was so committed. It was so inspiring as an artist to work with her, because she was so committed to this character that she had created, and it was so grounded and so real and coming from such a truthful place that the other Ava sort of just disappeared and she completely became Eve. And that in itself was really, it was just remarkable to watch, to sort of witness. And she was only there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, she came in like 10 days and just like did all her stuff like all in a row.
Yeah, she came in full force, did her stuff, and then left. And it was just amazing to witness.
How long was the whole shoot?
It was short, like 23 days, I think. 22, 23, somewhere.
Like all indie films nowadays.
Yeah, it was an indie
2 weeks.
movie, so it was down and dirty.
Now, I gotta say, Shailene, that you are like proving to be one of the great on-screen criers of our time. Like you and Julianne Moore got it down. You cry underwater in The Descendants, and in this scene, has anyone actually seen the film here yet? It's on VOD. Okay, you got one person in the back. You have this really powerful breakdown down in the basement, the confrontation with your father. I'm not going to reveal the ending of the film, but how do you prepare for a scene like that one, a scene like in The Descendants, and execute it quite the way you do?
I don't know, man. It's, I guess it's just really feeling a strong sense of empathy for what that character must be going through. You know, if I was Kat and I was in her shoes and having this particular conversation with my father, that's how I would react as Shailene. So I guess it's just applying these character situations to myself in a way. I don't know if that makes any sense. But.
Yeah, it's just kind of magical. I mean, that's the director. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened.
How many times did he have her do that scene?
I mean, yeah, we didn't do anything more than maybe 5 times, 6 times.
My favorite memory from this movie was Gregg was like, hey, Shay, let's go record the voiceover, because there's a lot of voiceover in the movie. I'm like, okay, thinking it's going to be like a temporary track that he's going to use in editing, and then after he's done editing, we'll go into the sound department and we'll redo it and whatnot. We go upstairs, we're like sort of in a warehouse like this, and we go to the second floor, and they're lighting a scene down below. And I'm in like wardrobe from whatever scene we're doing downstairs, and the sound department has like 3 black flags just sort of thrown up, and we record the entire voiceover for the movie over like 7 sessions, sort of. Like they'd be like, we need you, and then we'd come downstairs, film for 20 minutes, go back up, do 10 minutes more of dialogue, go back down 20 minutes, and that's the voiceover that's in the movie.
That's actually
That's
better
the art of,
for
22 days.
For Mysterious Skin, Joe did the same thing, but it was literally in a closet.
It's
we
amazing.
were in a clothes closet on one of the locations in one of the houses, like sat in the closet and did it.
You've clearly
It's the
moved
same.
up in the world.
Yeah, and it was the same thing. This is just a temporary one, right?
Awesome. So we're going to be opening it up to the audience. So if you have a question, please just raise your hand, and someone's going to be coming around with a mic.
They have a question, I could tell. They're shy, but they have a question.
Hi, my name's Camila. I'm a film student at NYU. So my question is for Gregg. Basically,
Are you coming to the screening tonight? I think there's an NYU screening.
is there really? I didn't
talked
know.
to Magnolia. They're over
Okay,
there.
I will speak to those people.
Cool.
Okay, so I think one of the trademarks of your films is that they're extremely visually stunning. There's a lot of kind of moments where, as the audience, you can sit back and enjoy how beautiful it is what you're seeing. Like, any moment could be paused and it could be a photograph. So my
That's
question.
exactly
what he says.
That's exactly what I tell my DP. I want every frame to be literally, you just like put it on your wall, and that's my art.
Right. So beyond the actual visual experience, do you think that there is a takeaway for the audience? Do you think that there's, beyond just the pleasure of seeing this, how important is it to actually have every scene be so beautiful? Like, does it add to the meaning of the film?
Well, it was really important to me in the sense, I mean, for all my films, but for this film in particular, I told my DP that I wanted this movie to be like a Wong Kar-wai movie meets Douglas Sirk. So it was sort of like these incredibly rich, painterly images, but with these really like kind of static, widescreen compositions of sort of emptiness and loneliness. And For me as a filmmaker, I mean, I do approach filmmaking from a visual side, so it's such a thrill for me to see the film on a big screen. We premiered the film at Sundance at the Eccles, which seats like 1,200 people, and it's this giant, giant theater. And we just saw the film in Deauville, which is also a 1,200-seat theater. And seeing the film in that way, it's really the best way to see the film. I know a lot of people, just watch it on iTunes or their iPad or whatever, but it's to see it in a huge screen and with the sound kind of all around you and the audience and everything is really, because I'm a ex-film student also, it's to me sort of the way to see it, because the film's about sort of creating its own world, and it's a place that you kind of escape to. And I actually find it a very pleasurable place. I mean, that's one of the things about the movie to me that's really striking is I always sort of sit in a screening and make sure the sound's okay, the projection's okay, and I find myself getting sucked into it every single time, and I have to kind of drag myself out to leave, because it's so easy and so pleasurable to watch, and I think a lot of that is because of the visuals. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. My question is for Shailene. So I've watched a lot of interviews you've done, and from your body of work, you just seem so confident, and you don't conform to a lot of what Hollywood actresses do. So who are your female role models? Like, how do you stay grounded and keep doing what you specifically want to do and not conform?
Well, as far as doing projects that I specifically want to do, I've always said I never want to work just to work, because I don't think that'd be fun on a film environment. Movies are definitely a labor of love, and I feel like you have to be very passionate about them. So I'm not going to do something that I don't feel passionate about. And then as far as role models go, I've been really lucky to sort of have amazing mentors in this industry, people that I've worked with who are incredible actors or incredible directors, and yet are still in this industry for the right reasons, because they're passionate about the art and the core of what it means to be on a film set, and still feel very lucky to be on a film set, because it's, a lot of people want to do what we've been able to do. And so I think that having those people constantly just reminding me at a young age of just the luck and to be grateful for what we have was really powerful.
I have a question for both of you. What is the timeline or the time frame from start to finish for this project, for you as a director, and then for you, Shailene, for your prep time, learning lines, getting into character, from when you very first really delved into it until the completion of filming?
This movie, for an indie movie, was actually quite fast. I think that the Spirit Awards conversation, I think, was in February, which is when the Spirit Awards were. I think we had our meeting about the script in January, and I believe we shot the film in around Christmas in sort of November, December. So for an indie film, that's actually kind of light speed. I've had films that I have been working on one film for 10 years. It's still not happening. So sometimes they take a long time, but this one came together pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think I don't remember exactly when. Was I doing Spectacular Now?
Yeah, there was a whole question about whether Spectacular Now was going to be first or this, and then you did Spectacular Now in the summer, I think.
Yeah.
And then we shot in the fall, winter.
But as far as preparation, I was wrapping up a television show, and it was the final episodes of a 5-year run, and then literally we finished on, I think, Friday on that show, and we started on this, or Thanksgiving was that weekend, and then we started on the Sunday after Thanksgiving on this movie.
Yeah.
So there really wasn't. We just sort of dove into it.
I have to ask them, what was it like to follow up something like an ABC Family show with a Gregg Araki film? I mean, it must have been night and day.
That is funny. I've never thought about that, actually.
It's one end of the spectrum to the other.
Yeah, totally.
You can't ask a question. You're the mic passer.
This one's for Shailene. I was wondering, were you more excited or nervous to do the whole 80s time zone. From what I understand, you haven't done like a movie from another time zone besides like Felicity, so.
Yeah, I was really excited. I grew up with like an older sister, and she trained me well with 80s music, and I always thought that she was so cool growing up. So it was neat to sort of have something that already felt so personal be a large part of this particular movie. And also, one of the things that's so great about this character is she's not defined by one specific stereotype or group. Like, she's not the goth kid, she's not punk, she's not full grunge. She's sort of alternative and an eclectic mix of just who she wants to be. And she's definitely like the cool outcast. And I feel like, back then, way back in the day.
Before you were born, so that is way back then.
Gregg, when we were preparing, was telling me about these clubs that he would go to go dancing when he was a teenager, and those are the clubs. There's a scene where my character dances at one of those clubs, and so in that way, it was really exciting to sort of get to know the culture of what it meant to be a teenager before computers were around in everybody's laps constantly, and before cell phones. It's amazing to see a movie, a coming-of-age film with no cell phones. I can't remember the last time that happened.
Back when teens danced to Depeche Mode, I miss those days.
It was a more innocent time.
Yeah. Okay, well, I have a question. We were talking about the 80s. Your style in the film is awesome. Can you talk about how you went about styling Shailene, or whether you played a role in it at all?
Yeah, I mean, we had a very specific idea in mind in terms of the look of the movie, the production design, the costumes, and everything. I mean, we wanted to be very true to the period, and Myri, the costume designer, did a phenomenal job with a lot. I think you had a lot of changes, and Ava too had a lot of changes.
It was so fun though to do like the 90s. I felt, because I grew up in the 90s, I remember the black chokers everybody used to wear. Like, we'd put our hair in ponytails but have like 2 skinny strips of hair next to your face. Like, it was fun to remember those childhood memories that I grew up like looking at my sister and the way that she dressed, and then the way that I started dressing, and apply that to Kat and have her walk around confidently with this look.
The style is so different than during the dance sequence that you were just speaking of. I was like, is this a Halloween setting, or just because it was so radical, the look that you got to wear?
I guess you've never been to that club.
No, I mean, obviously not.
That club is literally based on a club I used to go to when I was younger, and I spent all my 20s in a club just like that, and played those exact same songs, those exact same people. And the day we shot that scene, it was just like being in a time machine. The designers and the DP, everybody did such an amazing job of creating that space, because it was literally in a space not much different than this. I mean, it was just a blank space, and they just created this club out of nothing. And it was really trippy and cool.
You were talking
and
about
very
the look.
80s.
Yeah. You were talking about the look of the film earlier and how you wanted every shot to look like a still. You have so many sequences where Shailene and the cast speak directly to the camera, and I was curious, what's that like for you to have to stare right into a camera and act as if you're speaking to someone?
I remember because you sort of have to do that in some films, but I've never had to do a sex scene looking into a camera before. That was a little bit interesting. Shiloh, Fernandez, and I's characters are meant to be losing our virginities, and we were looking in a black box.
And
It's pretty funny.
You're really intimate with that black box of the camera. So
Yeah.
that X on the lens you're looking at.
Any more questions? Yeah, we have one over here.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Hi, Shailene. I'm Avery. I work at HuffPost. And the answer to this question might be what you just said, but I'm just wondering, so you've made a pretty diverse array of films over the last couple of years, but all having strong female heroines. I'm wondering, what's a time or a scene in making those films where you felt like you were really pushing yourself out of your comfort zone? And it might be like sex looking into a camera, but it could be something else.
I think that was more funny than anything. It was like, well, how do I do this? Oh man, push out of comfort zone. I think, doing Divergent actually probably was the most out of my comfort zone I've ever been, because it was such a big world. There's green screens, and not only were you trying to act, but you have to remember fight choreography and the timing of a bomb that's going off in the corner, and like make sure you don't get hit but still be an actor. And so that was probably the most challenging, just in the sense that there's so many elements that I had never worked with before.
All right, and that's all we have time for. Thank you so much.
He get to ask his question?
What's that?
I feel bad 'cause
he was the one telling me to wrap it up.
I feel bad because I cut him off and didn't let him ask his question.
Do you want to ask a question?
Do I have time?
Do you have
Sure. My question was, it seems like unique strategy I've never seen yet. The VOD, then premiering in the theaters. How does that affect you? How do you feel, especially it's your project, and like you're saying, you want people to see it in the theater. Just if you have any thoughts on that.
It's really interesting because, as an old school filmmaker, I do love cinema. I love the church of cinema. I love that you go and watch it in a communal atmosphere on a big screen with big sound. And especially for Whitebird, it's really so important to me to sort of be immersed in that world when you watch it, and not be watching it on a subway train and stopping it and starting it. But I also, as an old fuddy-duddy, understand that it's the new generation. And it's super exciting to me, the idea that, in the old days when you make these indie art films, they play like this sort of circuit of indie art theaters, and then they go on video, and then you hope that somebody will see them somehow. But now with the VOD and Amazon and iTunes and everything, it's incredibly cool to me that some kid in Alaska can read a tweet about Whitebird and push a button and watch it right now. The instantaneousness of that and the accessibility of that is, as a filmmaker, super exciting.
And the film opens next Friday. It's currently available on iTunes and on demand, so be sure to check it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
guys.
everybody.